This. All right, everybody, welcome to another Sunday Cinema. Um, I am Sharon, joined today by Hungry Mad Matt. Welcome, Matt.
How we doing?
And you all in the audience. So happy to have you all here today. This is a very interesting movie we will be watching today, Soylent Green. From 1973. So this is an oldie but a goodie. Um, we probably, a lot of us, I don't want to assume everybody knows the famous tagline, but it's also a dead giveaway about what this whole movie is about. Um, we could, do spoilers. This is 50 years old, 53 years old.
53.
Um, but, you know, Well, give it a go. And I'd love to know if any of you have not seen it before. If you have seen it, what was your impression of it as we watch it again? Um, Anything else to add, Matt, before we give it a countdown
I
and
was just,
go?
yep. All right, let's get ready to go in five,
All right.
4, 3, 2, 1, play.
Okay. Um, all right. This is an MGM classic dystopian. They call it what? Dystopian thriller, sci-fi thriller, made in '73, set in 2022. We're going to have a lot to say about what their impressions of 2022 versus the reality of our 2022 that we had to live through. Um, Not as bad as 2020, I would say, but still 2022 was still, I think we were still reeling from the shutdowns, trying to live a normal life. Um, all right, well, further ado, as the movie is getting on track, let me do a shout out to everybody who is here. We have in the YouTube chat, we have GH Zoner, we have Eric, Miss Swift, Calbot, Johnny Devick. Let's see, am I missing anybody? Um, Eric is chiming in. I know what the movie is about, but I have never seen it, but I do know what Soylent Green is. It's probably pretty hard to get to this point without knowing the famous tagline. Um, it might be a spoiler, but this is going to be a really interesting movie. If you have not seen it before, we're going to have lots to talk about. Johnny Devick has not seen it either. All right.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't recall if this got a lot of play on TV, but it's a movie again, a movie I always knew about, and of course everyone knew the tagline at the time, and so it was one that I just never got around to seeing. So like I said, I've only within the recent years did I pick up. It was on a pack of a DVD bundle with 4 movies. So I grabbed it and finally watched it for the first time a couple years ago. But I don't remember
yeah.
it getting the playlist. I'm also thinking back to, like, since I grew up in the '70s, I spent like all the time the Saturday afternoon movies were all reruns of movies from the '50s and '60s, and in the '70s I wasn't old enough to see these movies. And then once I got old enough in the '80s to see movies, I was spending all my time watching '80s movies. So I think a lot of the movies from the '70s I never actually got around to seeing.
Yeah. Interesting about the time that and the age that you would have had access to these movies. There was a comment, Calbot is saying this was on TV a lot in the 70s and 80s. But also in the 80s, there were a lot of 80s movies that were on TV that probably were like more relevant to us as kids that we would have watched over some of these older ones. Um, I
Yeah, I
I
would
also
compare
grew up in the
compare this
80s.
to, like,
Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say I compare this more to like Logan's Run. Logan's Run, I remember just
Right.
constantly seeing that one over and over again. But that was also the theme of all of the '70s movies. Just seemed to be dystopia. Every movie out was we're done. It's over.
Let's show you a future that we're in for, guys. Um, yeah, I was not exposed to this movie in the 80s either. I don't remember it being on TV a ton. I don't even remember when I became aware of its existence. There were so many of the 70s sci fi genre that I was exposed to that, yeah, this one just fell through the cracks. But
I'd have to see that.
it's fairly
Yeah, I
interesting.
did. I didn't check. I didn't check my list, but I've got. It'd be interesting to see if it even was available because I recorded hundreds of movies.
Mm.
So I've
Oh,
got a
yeah.
whole wall full of videotapes of unwatched movies that I recorded once the VCRs became available. I took it
Oh,
upon
that's
myself to
the
record
beauty.
everything in existence, and then never watched a
Yeah.
single one of them.
The beauty of the VHS systems when they first came out, it was exciting to be able to record and watch it later. Um, that was revolutionary at the time.
Yeah, I found when I do try when I rewatch some of those, I'm going like, oh great, now I can finally edit all those commercials out of the movies. But then
Mhm.
when I rewatch them, I find that the commercials were more entertaining than the movie. Some of those commercials are lost to the ages.
There are YouTube channels, there are
Yep.
resources out there that will bring back those old commercials. Um, all right, well, let me do a shout out as the movie is now kind of we're building up on the story. Charlton Heston. Oh, we got a lot to say about him. Um, all right, well, let's do a shout out. Who is on Discord? Frag Lord, welcome, Frag Lord, Mr. Furzel. Matt, you were posting that really interesting timeline of a lot of those dystopian sci-fi movies and when they were set. Uh, Soylent Green is set in 2022. Um, and we are missing a couple really good movies in that timeline, but that is interesting if anybody wants to go over to Discord and check out what Matt found. Um, am I missing anybody else? Mr. Furzel Flago, Eric is over there. Hey, Sith Sister is over there. Welcome. We've been missing you the last couple weeks. Glad you could join us. Calbot is over there. All right. Well, here we go, guys. Um, we are now introduced to the setup of this movie. We are led to believe that because the world was so big and yet so small and so overpopulated in a very short period of time, 40 million people, they had to cram into New York City. Um, you got to figure as a way of controlling the population a little bit more. Um, and these are the conditions that they are forced to live in. Charlton Heston character is Thorne, who is living with Edward G. Robinson's character of I want to say Saul. Saul, was I right?
Yeah. Yes, all.
Saul. Yep. Um, and they have a working relationship, and they're roommates. Charlton Heston Thorne is a cop that we're going to get kind of involved in his caper. Um, exactly, GH. The world is ending, yet Ascot survived. Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
But I do like this scene here. They're showing everyone. The cars were abandoned and unable. They're not using the cars to drive around. They're using the cars to live in, and that always brings back the movie Americathon, which would be almost this exact same premise, except it's a comedy.
yep.
And that was
Americathon, if I remember correctly, the US is bankrupt and they
yep,
have to hold a what oh God, what do they call it? The
Telethon.
a telethon. That's right, because they don't do telethons anymore, and they did a telethon to save America. Kind of a weird premise, but that was funny. Um, and what's an interesting premise in all of these futuristic movies is this is way back 1973, 1972, when this movie was being developed and written and filmed. This was their prediction of what 22 would look like from a 1973 perspective. Um, we still feel like we're in the 70s. Um, in my opinion, anyway, it's they're projecting what they think the world would look like in 2022, worst case scenario. But just a couple years ago, guys, we lived through 2022. Um, thank God we aren't living in conditions like this.
Yeah. So like yeah, we've got Mr. Furzel and sister. Yeah, if we're talking about the video game she was playing there, that game actually existed. That's the very first coin operated arcade game called Computer Space. That was
And
developed
the
in
very first one,
1971.
no, in 71, and the very first one ever shown in a movie.
Hmm.
Um, and so 1973 moviegoers would have just been surprised by that, thinking, oh, there's no way. And look how far we've come. Miss Swift, yes, Chuck Connors, the rifleman himself, legacy in Hollywood. Um, and he shows up here as he's credited as like a bodyguard, the muscle. Um, um, well, everybody who has seen this before, where was the first time that you saw it? And is anybody, I don't want to say old enough, I was born in 68. Does anybody remember this in the theater? So when I say any of you old enough to see this in the theater, I include myself. But I was 5, no idea. But yeah, interested in because Matt, you were saying you got this on DVD just a couple years ago with some
Yep.
of the other ones like the Omega Man. You had Westworld, um,
And Logan's Run.
Logan Run. Anybody else? Anybody have this on DVD? Oh, GH never saw it. Not old enough.
Yeah. I said the
Yeah.
70 theaters was my family packing us all in the station wagon going to the drive-in theaters to see like all the live action Disney movies.
Yeah, I remember going to the drive-in, and I'll never forget the very first one I remember was The Sting.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's my first cinematic memory. So here we have a twist where the guy with the crowbar, we assume, is like an intruder bad guy, but our victim is not really acting like he's surprised, right? Which is weird.
It's almost if he's the one who hired the hit to take himself out.
Almost.
He seems like
Um,
yeah, he's
it
regretful
appears.
for his actions and he's prepared to go.
Mm-hmm.
That scene reminded me a lot of the original Star Trek original series, The Apple, because that guy seemed completely innocent. Not quite. He was even asking about the morality of his actions. But there's that Star Trek episode where they go on the planet of villagers who are all innocent until they're
Mm.
instructed on how to kill the newcomers in almost the same manner of yep, just grab a big stick and whack them over the head. but they have no clue. That's like, yeah, they're completely innocent and don't understand the consequences of their actions.
Mhm. Yeah, it is interesting. Sister says it heard of it, know the tagline, never seen it. All right, first timer. Um, oh, how about I was 3 when it came out, but I saw it on TV whenever I saw this was on. I have it on Blu-ray and DVD, which I'm watching now. Very cool. Um, I wonder if this was on TV a lot. I imagine that not a lot would have to have been edited out. Um, the original, I'm going to search right now. The original rating was probably, anybody know off the top of your head? PG, I'm guessing. Yep. PG. There really is nothing really too graphic. Johnny Devick, interesting take. Buck Rogers and Galactica seem so much more future than this. Yes, in some of the, I was noticing that in some of the other sci fi futuristic movies, TV shows, they have more of a, what, digital appearance, high tech appearance, um, where everything is more like automated, futuristic. So some of them had that vision that that's what the future would look like. This is very much like picture 40 million people living in New York City. There's this is what it would look like. Um, we are
Yeah,
introduced here. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I think they're doing a really good job selling. It's like, with Charlton Heston. It's just where you just
Hmm.
grasp the simple things. Like he's just turning on the faucet and running his hand under the waters, and he's in absolute ecstasy. So I think they did a really good job selling. The premise of the movie is that, yeah, that people are, you know everything has been taken away. There's no luxuries at all.
There's very much at this point two classes. You are either rich and have an apartment like this, and you have the running water. You'll see he's going to get amazed at all of the things that we take for granted. He sees them as luxuries because of the different worlds that have been created with the so-called overpopulation. Um,
And
and
he is a policeman, so it's not,
yep.
like, technically a government official. He's not like, one of the down and outs. Or we're even seeing there that, yeah, just how much despair is going on in the world.
Yeah, I think that is the point. That is what the filmmakers were going for in this to show the absolute worst of what would happen, but also juxtapose just okay, my tongue is tied. But then you overlay that with people that have those luxuries, people that are in want of nothing. And you have these worlds colliding. Thorne is a police detective who is assigned to investigate. I used to be able to say that word, GH, and for some reason my tongue is not
You're you're
formulating that.
you're adding too many syllables. Just say juxtapose.
I think so. Um,
Ba-deep, 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 ba-deep. That's all, folks.
that's all, folks. Um, yeah, so we're getting the impression that 40 million people have been shoved against their will to live in New York City to counteract this population explosion, that there is no room on planet Earth, which all you have to do is think critically to know there is room. There is plenty of room. Um, it's already a little off. Yeah, you know what? I'll get that word. I'll pronounce it. Um, oh, Mr. Furzel, that's why I am drinking bourbon now. You never know when it might go away. Um, yeah, I guess you could say that about a lot of commodities. But we had a little glimpse of where Thorne had been living in this dilapidated, overpopulated um, housing complex, apartment building. Um, we are introduced to now how the other half lives. And I think they've already mentioned that they touched on that gal that lives there, Cheryl, a young Lee Taylor Young plays Cheryl, who is called Furniture. And I guess the women that come with the apartments are all called Furniture as a way of dehumanizing, making them property. Um, yeah, Calba, in case anyone missed it, she is Furniture and goes with the apartment. Yep. So she's going to stay for the next tenant, which in today's economy, that would probably make a lot of people upset. But remember, this is a dystopian, exaggerated version of what they think life in 2022 would be like given the plot line. Yeah, Johnny Devick, that's not a good look after 2012. It doesn't mean this is reality, and it is denigrating these women, but it is part of the whole narrative that we're getting at. I love how he got a pillowcase and he is just pilfering all of those items like he's entitled to it. Anybody notice that? And no one stops him. This back lot where all this was filmed, interestingly enough, this was part of MGM's back lot, but this was the last movie to use all of these back lots before they were torn down. Um, and that's why they look the way they did because they were allowed to just fall apart. MGM, I believe, at the time already knew that they were going to sell off those assets. And when you're making a gritty dystopian futuristic movie, we can use the backdrops and you don't have to do anything about it.
Yeah. It was also said too that they didn't hire a bunch of extras. They just actually got people off the streets and brought them inside. Stand here while we film a movie.
Yeah, which will come in handy in some of the future scenes when you're going to have to see a lot more people. Because we just have a little idea of how crowded it was, but you'll see later just how crowded the city would be. Um, Soylent, Soylent oceanograph. Okay, for some reason that's another tough word, but that's a survey report from the Soylent Corporation, which will come in handy. Edward G. Robinson. He is a classic actor. I believe his first appearance was in, I want to say the 40s,
Oh
up
yeah.
until this movie. What was his first movie? Anybody know?
That's gonna say I'm gonna say other than this movie, I don't think I've ever seen another Edward G. Robinson movie ever. And all I would know from him is all the caricatures from the Bugs Bunny cartoons.
Yeah. And he was really good. theater and film debut. Yep, he was active in the theater. I believe his first film debut was in the 30s. I'm thinking. Um, yep, and they like to cast him as the heavy, the bad guy. This was his very last movie appearance. Um, and his very, well, I don't want to give away too much, but this was his very last movie appearance, and he died the day after or the day of his very last scene that was filmed.
Yeah, that's a yeah, a 101 films, so not a
Mm-hmm.
bad career.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Yeah, we have Calbot, and yeah, Calbot is mentioning the 30s. Uh, his breakout role was in Little Caesar in 1931. Yeah, he was born at the what 18? He was born 1893 or 1990 1895, before the turn of the century. Um, so imagine in this world, conditions are so bad. There's no food. Um, your food is rationed to you from the government. And at this point, everyone has to live on the little wafers, Soylent red and yellow, um, with Soylent green being introduced as packed with nutrients and like the best food for you. Um, and given that people didn't really have much of a choice, of course they'd go for it.
Yeah, that it's Soylent Green is being uh, saying that that's plankton from the sea, which is interesting because that was also the source of food in Logan's Run when they get out of the city and find that they have been harvesting seagrass and plankton from the sea.
And it's so nutritious and you can live on it. It's so good for you. But again, if you're rich enough, you can still have the beef, you can have the fresh vegetables. So you wonder how much would the government be lying to everybody to keep them from nosing around, to keep them complacent and not want much. And the government will give them exactly what they want to, and to control society as much as possible. So at some point, wouldn't they have asked um, what was going on with crops, with food? If the rich people have access to it, yeah. Interesting if you want to juxtapose just
Just suppose this happens.
yeah, just suppose. And suppose that we in today's society live under those conditions, who would want to break out of it? So that's what lies in this dystopian belief that society is just doomed, and
But
people are doomed.
who's to say this hasn't already happened though? Because it's like, yeah, everywhere we're going, it's like there's all these alternatives to food now and beyond burgers, and we're supposed to just be, and they've convinced us that it's what we want. We're clamoring for them. Everyone needs to convert.
Exactly. And what's the, I think there's a saying out there, you're going to, what, own, we're going to own nothing and be happy and we're going to eat bugs. Well, if I had to be forced to eat bugs, bugs are nutritious, but how much would you believe in a government that makes these kind of conditions a reality. Um, and
So here we go.
and
Yep.
people
Soy.
at
Yep. The yellow Soylent is soybeans.
Yep, and the red is lentils, right?
I'm yeah
Soylent.
wondering because that was the from the book. That's where the Soylent comes from. Is the Soylent wafers in the book are just a combination of soybean and lentils, where the name Soylent comes from, at least from the book.
Yeah, exactly. It is based on a 1966 book, Make Room, Make Room, um, which was going to be the title of this movie, but it would conflict too much with a show that was going on at this time. What, Make Room for Daddy?
Yep, with the Danny Thomas,
Yeah, exactly.
which I used which I used to watch.
Nice.
Get up there
So
with
here
I
we
Love
go.
Lucy
Some of the,
and
oh,
the
go
Patty
ahead.
Duke Show.
Mm-hmm. And some of these exterior shots, yeah, like you were saying before, these are not extras. They're just people that they got off the streets, just regular people. So, through the process of his investigation, he is now coming after Tab Fielding. And we see another woman here who we would suppose then is quote unquote furniture.
Yeah, as Miss Swift there posted the is that Brock Peters in Battlestar Galactica?
Yep. Brock Peters there was the police commander,
Yeah, the chief.
chief,
Yeah,
Chief Hatcher.
yeah. Brock
Does
Peters is more going on to this. He's been in a lot of the Star Trek movies, and then he
Yeah, I
went
was
on
going
to
to say, does anybody remember him from that?
yeah, and then he went
Yep.
on to be Benjamin Sisko's father in Deep Space Nine. But every time I hear Brock Peters, immediately comes because he also did a lot of voice acting. But I first knew of the name Brock Peters when they did the radio show for Star Wars because he's the voice of Darth Vader.
Yes, he was. GH is asking, why do they all have car batteries in their places? Probably for power. Because I can imagine if you're being forced to live in these kind of conditions and the government is controlling your food, they're probably controlling your energy as well,
Yeah, that's where we
or
saw in the
rationing.
yeah in the earlier scene. That's where we see
Yeah.
Edward G. Robinson have to get on his bike to charge up the generator because the electricity was going out.
Well, in today's society, that's pretty normal. We can generate our own power. It's and that's commonplace.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's
over there in Discord, Miss Swift posted a picture of that's Battlestar Galactica. Um, yeah, Dirk Benedict was in that, and then Mr. Furzel recognizes him as Face from the A Team. Yeah, that was pretty forward thinking of them in 73 that people would have batteries and can produce their own power. Very clever. Because Miss Swift is also mentioning it. You saw Saul cycling to charge up the battery in the beginning. Yep.
yep, that's bringing back the theme song from Gilligan's Island. There's no lights, no cars,
Motor
no
cars.
luxury, not a
Not a
single
single
luxury.
luxury.
Got to power everything with coconuts.
They create a bike as well to charge it because they had to do something to charge up the radio they had.
That's it's a theme now. It's like, yeah, when everybody needs to recharge their phone, they should be doing it on a bicycle.
It's very doable. We have very efficient means of producing electricity and batteries that'll hold it and that'll power your home for days and days. What's interesting about Saul's character is that he does remember when life was not like this. And isn't that interesting? The older I get, the more I remember what life used to be like, what the world used to be like. And in some ways, it's shocking what we have become and what the world has become.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of the yeah. Everybody is now demanding that everything be given to them without them doing a lick of work.
Hmm.
So you're seeing, yeah, that we're in the early stages of this, foreshadowing event. If we don't, I said, it's like I said, you won't know what you're missing until it's gone.
Exactly. Yeah, his line there was a world once, you punk. Yeah, the world wasn't like that.
Interesting, yeah, exactly. Like how old these characters are supposed to be, because they would still think that if Saul is remembering, days of yore, that would still put um, Charlton Heston's character would still have been a young kid, so it shouldn't be this drastic span. Although I know the character from the book is supposed to be like in his 20s instead of his 50s, like Charlton Heston is in this movie.
Yeah, in order for that to be more effective, there should have been a bigger age gap. But back in the 70s, Charlton Heston was a star. And there are a lot of stars in this movie. Um, and of course, a couple years prior, we knew him in the first Planet of the Apes movie.
Mhm.
So he's got star power. Miss Swift says, I feel seen by Saul's inability to bite into an uncut apple. Wasn't that interesting? That little scene that he was unable to bite into it.
Yeah, and that whether that was played for the character or most likely actually real, because also Edward G. Robinson was almost completely deaf at this point too, as they said they would cut scenes and he would keep going because he couldn't hear. And I'm getting up there too, where simple things are becoming extremely difficult. So yeah, it is
Life gets
quite
more
quite
interesting when
real
you
what's
get older,
going
doesn't
on.
it? Okay, G.H. Zoner. Interesting point. It's not that people want everything given to them. It's that people can't afford basic things today because the rich are making things more expensive because they are acting stupidly and selfishly. Very interesting point. I have seen a shift in in things like that because it certainly isn't the world that I was used to as a kid. And I kind of wonder whether this is by design. Because a lot of the stuff that we see in society today does not seem organically produced. It seems like there is a design behind it by those in power. Um, and I wonder if you use that kind of psychology on this movie, whether in fact the world has become what it is in this movie, or was it designed that way? Um, One of the things when I was researching this movie a little bit, you'll notice how sweaty everybody is. Um, and supposedly that was a little bit that was put in the movie because of the global warming, or the atmosphere that was just making everything this greenhouse on Earth. And that's why everybody is so sweaty. Um, which is an interesting mechanism in the movie to portray desperation, um, the downfall of society, the downfall of this world. Oh, yeah. Eric, good point. Just look at what's happening to PC hardware because of AI data centers. A lot of components are becoming so expensive, a lot of people cannot afford it anymore. And NVIDIA and other companies um, are already proposing people just rent cloud computing instead of buying your own PC. Yeah, a lot of companies have already come out and said there is going to be a shortage on PC products for the consumer in the next couple of years. So we had better get used to it. And I guess there are powers that be, guys, that are going to have their way, and we're just going to have to suck it up and accept it. All right, well, here we have a scene, well, with all the furniture. Um, which I don't see anything wrong with, right? That's what you do. Um, yeah, so they're just having a party. Cheryl and her friends are having a party. But you'll see in one of the next scenes, it seems to be a problem.
Well, yeah, it's like these. Yeah, so these are all the women from all the apartments.
Hmm.
So they've all gathered together in one place instead of being in the rooms. That's where the guy comes storming in.
Yeah.
But
And
it'd
I
be
don't
the
want to give
same.
too much of the movie away, but yeah, in the next scene, we'll see that these gals are not supposed to be doing that. Um, because the high society, the rich people, have this as part of their apartment. They have the furniture, um, and that's just a kind of a luxury you have for being rich. But that's no different than our society, right? The rich
Well,
have it made.
yeah, I was going to say that just looks like an episode of Real Housewives.
Yeah. You know, the rich and powerful can have their way, and the rest of us, um, we just like have the leftovers. But Swift is saying, wouldn't you have a problem if your furniture started parting while you were away? And
I
your
always
furniture had what?
I leave the house every day telling everybody to have a good time. I'll be back home from work, and I'm talking to nothing. I'm just talking to my furniture. So hopefully they entertain themselves while I'm out.
And all the other furniture comes into your apartment and they all have a party while you're gone. I mean, what's wrong with that?
I'm trying to wonder too. This chair he's sitting in the background looks like somebody. Looks like a wampa from Star Wars. A big Yeti snow creature somebody took down in a hunt.
Yeah, you can have anything when you're rich and powerful enough.
But that was There's some really interesting decor from the '70s. Had a few of that. I think I still got a few things in my garage when I bought my home with it that the people didn't want to take with them and just go like, wow, that's definitely from the '70s.
Yeah. It's this movie definitely has the 70s aesthetic. Even though they try to portray it as 2022, um, in some respects they do nail a dystopian future, but yeah, this is still a gritty 70s movie in every way.
Yeah, there's no like futuristic technology. It's like again that people are just scavenging remnants of the past to get by.
Yeah, and even they're showing the rich and elite as not having the futuristic luxuries except a bigger apartment, access to food, women at their beck and call. Um, yeah, see this guy coming in.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
got
and
a
he
definite problem.
yeah, and he definitely shouted it here. He said furniture is supposed to stay in their
Mm.
units.
Yeah, and obviously he's got no problem whacking him around. Johnny Depp is so how do they end up with furniture? It comes with the apartment, with the rich lifestyle. This is what you are entitled to when you get this rich. And Cheryl was okay. The guy that died, she belonged to him, and she stays with the apartment. So I think she kind of had the conversation with Thorne about how she's just got to wait because maybe the next owner of the apartment is going to want her. So maybe if we want to dive deep into the movie lore, it would probably come with the structuring of society with the rich and the powerful always in charge, always get to set the rules, and that the rest of us have to live by. So that's what they have set up for themselves. But keep in mind, the guy who died was also a member of the board of Soylent Green Corporation, which is behind all of the food production. Um, so that's supposed to make all the wretched, the poor, I don't want to say worship, but you really want to edify the corporation that's feeding you, I guess. So Thorne, as a police detective, has no problem coming in and like I think you had said that before, Matt, just coming in and taking what he wanted. Um, there was another comment. He just goes from apartment to apartment, takes what he wants with no repercussion, and he just kind of has his way with the furniture because that's the furniture's job is to do whatever she's told.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're not
if
getting
that's
yeah we're not getting a lot of again it's like that would be a whole thing of how the society works. But are these women, are they free to go? Can they choose not to be furniture? But they're choosing to be in this because the lifestyle is affording them, good food, good, their, air conditioning. We don't see, we're not expanding on that level of society.
That is a very good point. Are they free to go? They probably are because there are plenty of women that will come in to take their place. Um, what we're seeing is the difference in society. If you're not rich, you're poor. If you're rich, you have all of these luxuries. And I imagine if you are raised in the wretched filth for long enough, you would want to break out. Um, and willingly do that to yourself and live in that environment so you have access to things like food, a bed, um, running water, soap. The basic things that we take for granted are now no one else has.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how bad would things get to get you to change from being morally opposed to it to just acceptance that this is how it works.
Oh yeah, that would be a very deep discussion about how these gals did get to be furniture. Um, and they seem like they're happy and they choose to be there. What's behind that decision? And Johnny Devitt points out using the term furniture makes it hard to discuss using furniture in traditional ways. It makes them objects. It makes them an everyday object that is just part of the background, and it dehumanizes them. Yet Thorne is here having no issue with just taking her, taking advantage of her because she's there.
I think this little scene here is finding walking into the church and finding the mother dead and the daughter tethered to her. That is deeply disturbing. Just that tiny little scene.
And that, yes, you're right. The little having the child tied to her was just a little thing they did, but made a big impact. Um, and this is where we kind of get into his investigation led him to this priest who was um, okay. The guy who died. I am forgetting his name. Does anybody know his name offhand? Otherwise, I'm going to have to go back and look at it. I just keep calling him the guy who died. What is his name?
Who are we talking about?
The guy who died at the very beginning.
Oh,
Um,
the Simonson.
Simonson. Yes.
Yeah, played by
Um,
Joseph Cotton.
yes. And then we have the guy who plays the priest. Um, I want to say Lincoln Walker. Is that right? Did I get his name right? Lincoln Patrick. I was close. And he plays in this movie, he is the priest that Simonson talked to right before he was killed. So, in the course of an investigation, of course, you'd want to talk to everybody that your victim talked to. Yep, Lincoln Patrick. Thank you, Calbot. Lincoln Patrick died in 2004. Um, I believe when they did a 40-year reunion for this movie. I think there was only two people of the original cast still alive, and I know
They're yeah,
most
those
most
two. Yeah, they said that too when the movie. I believe they're still. It's yeah. Oh no, I've lost all my the
Um,
the woman playing Cheryl
yep.
and
And
the assassin who killed Simonson in the
Simonson.
beginning. Yeah, I think his name is Steve Young, and oh, Tyler Lay. What's her? She's got three names.
Lee Taylor Young. She is
Yeah,
still alive, I believe.
yeah. So there's only two people in this movie still
Two
alive
people
today.
left.
Yeah,
And of course, Charlton Heston. Does anybody know his last movie appearance? Um, he was a very prolific actor. Um, he died in 2008. Does anybody remember
I'm,
what
I'm
his
just
last
remembering one of
appearance
his.
was?
Yeah, his cameo in Wayne's World 2 is what comes. Don't know if that's his last appearance, but that's when I would go. That's when we last saw him.
I wonder. Um, I think he was acting up until he died, or did he retire? Um, I know he was famous for a lot of his work outside of the stage and screen. Um, act, he did a lot of acting, and he had political, civil rights advocate, all of this stuff that he had done after and during. I mean, he was acting up until what? That was kind of what I was interested in. Later roles. Yeah, because I remember back as a kid, I would see Planet of the Apes like all the time. It was shown on like Saturday morning movie all the time.
Yep, and then always come. Yeah, always seeing him as Moses in the Ten Commandments.
Yep, Ten Commandments. Okay, so these guys right now are up to no good. If they know Simonson had time with that priest.
I still like the other small little touch of how bad things are is they were meeting at the tree sanctuary, which was that tent that had like one tree in it. Going, it's like, oh yeah, all the trees are gone. What do you know?
Yeah, and once again, part of this dystopian future is the greenhouse effect has killed everything, and that's whether it's true or not. At least in New York City, it is. The last trees are being protected, um, but who knows what is going on outside of New York City at this time. Um, it's worth pointing out because this big outdoor scene, as people are getting their food, you'll see a lot of people in masks, which was interesting to point out because in 2022 there were a lot of people still masked up. So they got that right.
Yeah, I saw this when we had the signs up saying today is Soylent Green Day, and Green Day is in a separate section. That made me go, it's like, hey, wait a second, is the band Green Day named after this movie? And
Hmm.
no, no, they're not. But but you can get into a really
Interesting.
deep dive of like some, especially a lot of bands in the '80s that they're just a bunch of silly nerds, and all the band names are derived from sci-fi movies.
So maybe in an alternate universe, Green Day would have been called Soylent Green Day
Yep.
as a throwback to this movie. That would be funny. Um, Chaos Fear is joining us in Discord. Welcome, Chaos Fear. He's saying, dang it, grabbed this to join and was trying to take a nap so could join in and overslept. Hey, no worries. We are about 59 minutes into the movie. Um, so I tell you what, this scene is very disturbing in more ways than one. Um, so we have the assassin there has he's trying to scope out Thorn, but okay, so this scene has real life ramifications, and I think we have seen scenes like this where people get so worked up that um, that the mob mentality will utterly destroy their surroundings. And there's no better way to create that than by starving the masses and saying there's no
I'm
more
like,
food.
yeah, I was watching this now. They have the scoops here taking up the people, but just watching them going, I don't see how these would have been effective at all. Most they're losing half the
Right.
people you scoop up, and how many people can you get in there before you? And then once you got to back this vehicle out of the crowd, it doesn't. I'm like going, I'm not sure this works.
It wouldn't. This has no basis in reality other than it makes a really good scene. Um, One of the things that this scene reminds me of, Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert, when they reviewed this movie, Roger Ebert had a more favorable impression of this movie, and he gave it 3 out of 4 stars. Gene Siskel gave it 1 out of 4 stars and said specifically this scene with the front loaders as they were loading up the people will make you laugh. And it is a comical scene when we're supposed to feel like this is just a desperate situation, and now the government is trying to get rid of these protesters, and this is the efficient means possible. You scoop them up and you toss them with the trash. But
Yep.
it is
How
kind of
many?
comical.
Yep. I was going to say how many people here watching have been in a crowd like this?
And
Because
have the
I'm thinking,
crowd suddenly turn violent.
well, not turn
Yeah.
violent, just be in a crowd where smushed up against a lot of people, and it's because it's like, yeah, for me, the worst place I was, in a crowd that size was I went to Disneyland New Year's Eve, and you could not move. It was just go with the flow. You could not escape. It was
Yeah.
horrible, and we were in the happiest place on earth, fighting for our lives.
Yeah, because all it takes in a crowd is one wrong move, someone saying the wrong thing, and panic can ensue, and it's not a good scene. Um, okay, Miss Swift over in Discord has posted a link. It's Prince Spaghetti Day. Am I missing that reference? Um, okay, how he ended up back at does he figure this is the guy that sent the assassin after me? Oh, wow. Johnny Devick is saying, I was in the slums of Uganda some years back, and there was a
Uh,
woman carrying her child into the road and holding it up towards the windows of passing cars asking for help. The closest I've been to poor. Yeah, that's poor. Um, yeah, that's really heartbreaking. Okay, Johnny Devick, these are just actors starved for attention. Isn't that a pun? But I'm bum. Yeah. Well, that is a good point. GH is saying these guys are all pretty well paid for a world that is starving. Good point. Um, I think we've all seen pictures of what true starvation looks like. People that have survived the concentration camps, that's starving. And they certainly don't look healthy like these people do. Um, yeah. So this movie is pretty heavy in its tone. The mystery is slowly, I think, being unraveled. So what I'm supposing is this scene is in this community. This would be the epitome of your justice system. Um, your judges, your interpreters of the law to I don't know to keep things civil. And it seems that this is where he is getting that information about a murder to be investigated. Ah, there we go. Calbot is posted a picture over there in Discord. Charlton Heston in Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes in 2001. He has 3 IMDb credits after this and retired from acting in 2003. Yeah, that's a good point. Mr. Furzel saying, what a tough guy, Heston, beating up a guy who won't fight you and a woman. Exactly. The guy said, I'm not going to fight you.
yeah, that one seemed a little confusing because we're getting the Chuck Connors character is working now, and we're still not seeing that this is still a corporation. They still seem like they're above the police. They still may be above the government. But if he's working for them, why is he still afraid? He says he won't hit a cop. So he thinks there'll be some level of retribution for hitting a cop, but he's working for the big guys that control everything. Seemed a little odd. Unless he still just doesn't, he's just a hired gun who doesn't realize the big picture of what's going on.
Probably. Um, yeah, and when you look at it logically like that, he's probably just he's a peon in the machine, doesn't have an overall picture and just does what he's told. So there in going off what you're saying, there's got to be then some semblance of order, of law and order that even these people follow.
Right.
Um, Otherwise,
Now,
if
yeah,
oh, go ahead.
when we get when we get this scene here where he's talking to the chamber council, and there's
Hmm.
with this actress here, I didn't visually recognize this actress, but her voice. I said, I know this voice. Does anyone place this actress?
Yep. Can anybody name her and what her what other trivia is?
What? Yeah, thank you, Calbot. It's T'Pau, the Vulcan priestess from Star Trek. When I first heard her talking, I was almost thinking it sounded like one of the Universal monster movies, like she was the old woman with the werewolf lore. But I'm like,
Mm,
no. And then I looked her up, and I'm like, yo, God, yep, that's who she is.
yeah, and I'm sure that's where we probably most know her from. Um, I can do a quick search and find out what else she has been in. Here we have the new owner of the apartment. And she gives her age as 21, which makes this even sadder.
And then it goes on to say he
Yeah.
thinks she's older, and then she says, well, we're both lying then, so she is not 21.
And he probably doesn't even care.
But there still seems to be a level of him asking her permission. It's still that's still up in the air of who's what's their role in society. If they, she says she has to stay, but does that just mean she wants to stay because it's such a nice arrangement, for the food and living. So there's still, yeah. And
Mm.
I don't know how much of that would come from the book or not, since, yeah, many, many things differ between this movie and the book.
Boy, how did we get to this scene so quickly? Wow. All right, we've got about 26 minutes left. Um, this is a really heartbreaking scene um, where in the council, in that scene, they had kind of discovered the truth, and Saul kind of discovered what was really going on. Um, and he is what appears to be he's going to a facility where a lot of other older people are going.
That's just too where, yeah, he holds up
Um,
the sign where he just writes, I'm going home. That brings to mind the song, the Major Tom song. Listen to that with understanding what the phrase "I'm going home" means.
Here we have the one and only appearance by Dick Van Patten, and he's got maybe one or two lines. Um, I saw an interview that Dick Van Patten gave later in his life. He was talking about working with Edward G. Robinson. They, um, I think he was such in awe of Robinson's career. He fumbled this line a couple times. Um, when he was saying, come with me right this way, he fumbled it many, many times because he kept calling him Mr. Robinson and not his character's name. Um, and he did mention in this interview that right after they filmed this scene, that was the night that Mr. Robinson passed away, and they were told the next day during filming. Yeah, I don't know whether to be troubled by this scene or horrified. Um, they're just, they just are making it way too easy. And they're just, in this world, they're welcoming a whole segment of the society to come in and, you sign a paper, you're asked a few questions, and then boom, you're in this room. Although his last moments, in his mind anyway, are going to be pleasant. Yeah, one thing that strikes me while seeing this and all of these, beautiful images of what life should be, what life used to be, is how do these people know if they're trapped in New York City and they feel like they have nowhere else to go? That how do they know for certain that other parts of the world aren't like this? That you
Yeah,
can live with this kind of freedom?
but we're also knowing that yeah, he's made this decision based on he's just
Yeah.
found out the truth of what's been going on in the world.
Yep. Yeah. And that's what we're led to believe is that he found out that truth and this is how he chooses to deal with that truth. So it must be, pretty bad.
Because they were referencing this earlier in the movie. There were slight discussions of them talking, that this
Hmm.
is always an option. You can decide when you part this world. But that was
Yeah.
before the revelation of the deep dark secret.
And I think there was a scene, there was a reference to the knowledge that everybody had that the plains, the wide open fields that were used for growing crops, and all the wide open country has been decimated. Whether that's true or not, it's a way of controlling everybody to live in these cities and away from the wide open spaces where you're free to grow your own crops. But I have a feeling, based on everything that we've seen from this movie, the world has collapsed. And there is nowhere else for people to live except in these controlled cities.
It kind of yeah, it goes on to like parallel, like not to ruin the story of Logan's Run, but you see something similar where with the truth is hidden. They say they're protecting everybody, but they're actually hiding the fact that everything's fine, and we like you under control.
Yeah. There are a lot of movies that have that as their central theme, where our reality is not really the reality. It's just that we've been programmed to see that as our reality. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Miss Swift. The official video for Major Tom. Yeah, Mr.
Yeah.
Fursel is saying, guess this is supposed to be their 2001 moment here. Yeah, GH is saying, hell, I wouldn't mind going that way. Yeah, for Saul's character, um, this is probably the most beautiful way that he can go out. Ah, so he's going to impart his wisdom with Thorn in his last dying moments. Yeah, interesting, Cal, but we've become too cynical. We are supposed to take this movie at its word. The hidden truth here is not that the world is actually fine, but that it's even more effed up than they're telling us. Yeah, very good point. Yeah, and I think the whole basis for this movie is yes, the world has gone to shit, guys. There is no hope. And the only hope is this hope that we have given you in this society. And isn't it kind of nice that we have given you a easy way out? Yeah, Miss Swift, nice continuity glitch on the speaker cord. Yeah, very interesting on the pivotal moment. Okay, there we go. Um, Boy, this movie is just going fast. There wasn't too much action so far, and I think now it's kind of kicking into high gear.
I said, if you want more continuity glitches, just watch how many times that Charlton Heston remembers that his leg, he was shot in the leg. Because we'll see him limping, and then other scenes he's running full bore with no problem.
Yeah, that was supposed to be a pretty big injury. I think it was supposed to have gone through his leg, and it wasn't just a scratch.
I keep seeing this one tied into like who's running this big corporation that's now taking these all these bodies into storage, and then I can't keep remembering our watch of V that all the
Yeah,
aliens were storing bodies for food.
yeah, exactly. The same kind of mechanism. Someone has to take care of all these bodies. And isn't it poetic justice that in this world where people are treated like garbage, that they're hauled away in garbage trucks?
Is also interesting is like how big an an outfit like here we've got multiple truck drivers and you've got to have
Mhm.
factories so you got to have workers so how many people are aware of what they're doing because there's also that big conspiracy going on here.
Um, yeah. Would everybody know what's going on? Not necessarily. Maybe the guys loading the bodies into the trucks just thought they were going to, you know, incinerate the bodies
We're
and
still
not,
still putting them in little barrels and shooting them through a portal with the tall
yeah.
guy from Phantasm.
Or you know what? If you're working in a corporation like this, you've probably learned not to ask too many questions. And you're probably at this point lucky to have a job that they probably can afford to have some real food. Although I'm guessing not. If the food supply has been totally decimated by overpopulation, they've had to corral all these people into these manageable cities. That, yeah, you're not allowed to live outside anywhere else. So, probably wouldn't have access to food. That's a lot of dead bodies, guys. That's a lot. Which I'm assuming are all volunteers to kill themselves because life is so horrendous. This is how you prefer to. You just prefer to leave. Interesting. Frag Lord said, I sent Gemini a deep research. The transformation of Cheryl from a mistress with agency in Harry Harrison's 1966 novel to a piece of property in Richard Fleischer's 1973 film is the most significant divergence in the lore. Harry Harrison was reportedly 50% pleased with the adaptation, famously criticizing the furniture girls and the cannibalism reveal as irrelevant to his core message about overpopulation. Yeah, Mr. Fursla saying irrelevant has everything to do with overpopulation. Yeah, it's like the whole message of this movie is at the core about the overpopulation of the world has caused all of this. And there are now 40 million people shoved into New York City. Because, guys, it's been 50 some odd years. I think, yeah, we can have a little spoiler.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
he's
And
about to.
yeah, because they just in under 10 years, we're just going to lock the gates on New York City anyways and turn it into a prison. So
Yeah, exactly. And just turn it into a prison, and eventually all of these people here will become irrelevant. Um, when was Escape from New York set in? Did you have that on that
I don't
map?
think,
Map?
yeah, I don't think that's
That's
there. And
not.
I'm trying to remember offhand too. That seemed to be just like probably the late '90s.
I think so. Anybody refresh my memory? When was Escape from New York supposed to be set? I'm drawing a blank. Yep, those are the green wafers everybody's getting all excited about. Mm. Hmm. Okay, GH has a good point. I have not seen one farm guarded by soldiers as I was promised. Yeah, all we did was we got that hint in the narrative about all the farms, if they are still around, are being guarded, and you're not allowed to live there. So again, so the rich and powerful would have control over that. Yeah, thank you, GH. 1997. That was the
Hmm.
prediction for 1997. This is the prediction for 2022. Um, yeah, so I don't think they could coexist. Ah, Calbot says Escape from LA was set in 2013. Okay, who said that? Swift. Miss Swift. Also, if you've seen Snowpiercer, don't think about what's in the food bars. Absolutely. Snowpiercer, what an interesting movie. I haven't seen that in a while. And that's an interesting TV show, too, for anyone who hasn't seen it. Um, Yeah, GH Zone are so easy for some schlub to walk around in their secret underground lab where they make people into Soylent Green. Um, yeah, so there are plenty of people that know that work in this factory that know what's going on, but aren't going to say anything. Um, but that also exists in real life where people can exist very happily in their life surrounded by um, how do we say this delicately, surrounded by not so nice things, and they're okay with it, even though from an outside perspective it's not okay. Yeah, Johnny Devick, I plan to see it, but so much content, ain't that the truth? There is so much content out there. So to answer your question from before, Matt, are these girls free to leave? um, it almost sounded like her plead to Thorne on the phone was, I want out and I want to come live with you. But or whether that was just a desperate plea that she in truth she wants to leave but can't.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. Has anybody read the book that this is based on? And what happened to her character in the book? That would be interesting. Miss
Yeah, I
Swift?
know. I'm trying to, I don't think I've read any because the author of the book is Harry Harrison, who I know. I I think I bought some of his books and just never got around to reading them because he also had the Adventures of the Stainless Steel Rat, and I may have bought some of those and just never ever got around to reading them. But I don't think I'm familiar with any of his works and whether or not this may be the one and only book that was turned into a
Mhm.
movie. So he's not as prolific as some of the other authors of his time. You get like authors
Yeah,
like
could be.
Philip K. Dick, who absolutely almost everything he's written has been turned into a movie.
Yeah, I wonder. I haven't done a deep dive on Harrison's work, but that would be interesting to see what his original narrative of Cheryl was compared to what they turned her into. Yeah, Miss Swift posted over in Discord. That's the word that I'm looking for. Complicit. Yeah, Calbot, thank you. From what Fraglord posted, it sounds like her character was changed from a mistress to furniture, so that concept wasn't in the book. So, yeah, they were treated more like mistresses that can just come and go as they please, but furniture was part of the apartment. Okay, what is Chuck Connor's name? I
Tab,
think I've got that down. What is his name?
Tab.
Oh, Tab. Yep, Tab is still on the hunt. Mm. And I think we did get to the scene where the original um, the original killer of Simonson, um, his background as to why he killed Simonson. I think we're past that scene, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That was the crowd scene. He was taken out by the scoop.
Yeah. Fraglord did give a narrative over there in Discord about Cheryl from the book. In the novel, Cheryl moves in with Detective Andy Rush after her benefactor is killed, but her decision is based on a calculation of comfort versus love. Yeah. And I think this whole narrative through this movie regarding these gals is, if you had your choice of living in destitution or in what, glamour, of course they would choose to have the food, the shelter, the running water, of course. It would only cost you your soul.
Yeah, and that was the one thing I was going to research but didn't get around to doing it was
Yeah.
since the concept of that Soylent Green is people was not in the book. Who changed it? Said who wrote the screenplay? Who changed everything? I didn't get into researching that.
Um, screenplay by Stanley Greenberg. And this actually won a couple awards. Um, yeah, at the time it came out, I think it was generally revered as a good movie, although it's not the best, but it tells a very riveting story. Um, and it's got an all-star cast that's fun to watch. It's people.
Yeah, it's funny how, yeah,
It's
before we talked an era before people were warning people not to spoil the movies. That I go, I don't know anybody who couldn't have, grown up in our, era that didn't know that Soylent Green is people.
Yeah, there's a difference between, being exposed to the movie taglines and actually watching the movie and having all the other details given away. Yeah,
But,
it
yeah,
is
it's interesting now that
53 years old, actually.
now that we're 50 years removed, because I watch a lot of reactions of, on YouTube of younger people watching movies, and they're just to see so much pop culture knowledge that I have that just is no longer in existence anymore. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting, isn't it?
Even something as simple as like the from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, just the five tones. That was repeated endlessly and mocked in so many shows and referenced over and over and over again. And I see people, it doesn't mean anything to them now.
Or they'll know, hey, wasn't that from a movie?
Hmm.
Yeah, it was from a movie. You ought to check it out sometime. It's a
Yeah.
great movie. Um, yeah, so in some regards, that could be said for our generation. Um, I could probably pick up some references to movies that predate me that I have not seen that I probably should.
Yeah.
Um,
It's funny how we have those memories. I have lots of knowledge of movies I've never seen, but trying to figure out how did we become aware of them? Because we didn't have the internet. We didn't have,
yep.
maybe reading a lot of, movie magazines, but just interesting of what, like I said, most of again, yeah, where I would have seen stuff like that play out would be Bugs Bunny cartoons. Like, yeah, I know of all this information, but it's just, yeah, from Bugs Bunny.
Yeah. Doesn't it make you think back to the days before the internet? How on earth did we get our information then? It was from generally from probably TV,
Yeah.
um, or,
Just, yeah, just
word of
oh yeah,
mouth.
water cooler chat.
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
seen? Did you
Interesting.
hear?
Um, Eric is saying, I know people who never watched Terminator 1 and 2 and don't know anything about these movies. Yeah.
Mhm.
Johnny Devick says madness. I agree. But then you think that came out 40 years ago? To me, it was a blink of an eye, but that's like a generation or two. Um, so that it kind of makes sense. Um, yeah, interesting, guys. Wow, you know what? We could have a discussion and keep going on and on about TV, movies, the culture, society, how everything plays out with movies and TV. It's a reflection of what people see, how they blah blah blah. Um, so fascinating. That's why I love our time together because you never know where our conversations are going. Um, yeah, Miss Swift is saying TV interviews, references, and other TV shows, behind the scenes specials. Yeah, that's exactly right. Um, I knew of older movies existing, black and white cinema existing. Where did I hear about them? I would have to, yeah, dig deep in my brain to figure out where I first heard about these movies.
Yeah, the
Um,
one sticking out of my head too is like I was at work. I think we're doing a crossword puzzle where the answer was Mr. Magoo, and And so he just said, "Oh, it's somebody asked like who's this cartoon character?" And I go, "That's Mr. Magoo." And then one of the young kids said, "Oh God, is that really old movie with Leslie Nielsen?" And we're just like, "No, it's a really 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 old cartoon, voiced by Jim Backus." I go, "You know Jim Backus, right, Mr. Howell from Gilligan's Island?" And then he's like, "No," and
Easy,
he's just
please.
already talking about the ridiculous live action
Oh,
with Mr. Magoo with Leslie Nielsen, and we're like, "Oh God, how old are we?"
ah,
That
I
they
feel
not only
old every day.
that he barely knew that reference, calling that thing that movie was old. We're like, "Oh God, no, 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 no."
Well, when they figure a generation is what, 18 to 20 years.
Yeah,
We're a generation and a half away from that Naked Gun movie. Um, Unbelievable. Time flies by. All right. Well, Sith sister, let's get to your rating. Okay. It was an odd duck for me. I see the message while diluted, but it just was not one I can go back to. Wife's cheese rating. The movie is like Sardinian cheese and Italian cheese with maggots. In the film, humanity feeds on processed human corpses, similar to the visceral taboo nature of eating maggot infested cheese. Both involve consuming something considered repellent out of necessity or tradition, while the film focuses on corporate government cannibalism due to ecological collapse. The comparison hinges on the horror of eating dead matter that is taboo to consume. Very well put. Very well put. Um, yeah. So happy you guys could all join us today. It is a very interesting movie, and so much to say about it, and so much of a reflection of society that we could just go in depth on it. But alas, we only have a limited amount of time. Johnny Devick is saying, not sure what I think about this. The premise is interesting. Yeah, it is. Swift is saying, nice to see the whole thing in one sitting. Yep. And GH, it was much better while drinking. Yeah, there you go. Um,
yeah,
yep.
just
And the
just
whole idea is to have fun and to maybe get exposed to movies we wouldn't normally see in our everyday life.
yeah. I
Um,
just said, yeah, just read those ingredient lists before you grab a box of crackers.
yeah, make sure, yeah, make sure it's not junk food. But yeah, pretty much everything today seems to be junk food. Um, all right, guys. Next week is another 70s classic, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This, I remember, like a lot of you were talking about how Soylent Green used to be on TV a lot. I remember this movie, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, was on all the time. Um, and I remember loving watching it every time it was on. And then it just kind of vanished. Um, and we're going to be enjoying it as a group next week. Um, Thank you, Mr. Ferzel. That is Donald Sutherland, who is one of the stars of next week's movie. All
That's
star cast next week, guys.
that's a
Um,
scene from MASH, right?
what, that right there, Donald Sutherland? A scene from MASH?
As he's in the original MASH movie.
Yeah, he is with yeah, that's an all-star movie too. I should put that on the list. I don't know how well MASH would age. If that's yeah, I'm looking at MASH and a couple other war movies. Um, yeah, just to
Yeah,
for us to get
and
a taste of a war movie.
I'm pretty sure too. I said with the Body Snatchers, I'm pretty sure I probably have a couple DVDs, but I think it's the original '50s movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I own the '70s movie.
Yeah, yeah. This 70s is a remake of the original movie from the 50s, I think 56, which was a black and white movie and still horrifying. This, we progress into the 70s with the 70s movie making style, and it's still horrific.
Yeah, and
This movie
there's some
scared the crap out
interesting.
of me.
Yeah, the Body Snatchers has been remade several times, so I think there's some out of the '80s and some out of the
Yeah,
'90s that are the
yeah,
some of those up all night movies.
exactly. So yeah, break out your DVDs. You can find it on any of the streaming services. If you have any problems finding it, reach out to one of us. I'm sure we can find it somewhere. Um, so thank you, Matt, for joining me today. And thank you all for joining us in the audience and for the chat, for being in Discord and throwing out those gifts and this wonderful discussion. I love doing it every week. Um, any last words, guys? Any last words, Matt, before we go?
Well, so until next time.
All right. Um, we'll see you all next time. I hope you all have a peaceful week. Stay safe. Be good to yourself. And we'll see you all next week. Same time, same channel. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.